Hello. Making sure this is going. Yep. Okay. Hope and pray this will be an easier chapter for me to read. It'll make sense and it won't be so long. We'll see. Chapter 8. On the morning of a fine June day, my first bonny little nursling and the last of the ancient Earnshaw stock was born. We were busy with the hay in a faraway field when the girl that usually brought our breakfast came running an hour too soon across the meadow and up the lane, calling me as she ran. "Oh, such a great bairn!" she panted out. "The finest lad that ever breathed, but the doctor says Missus must go. He says she's been in a consumption these many months. I heard him tell Mr. Henley, and now he has nothing to keep her. She has nothing to keep her, and she'll be dead before winter. How terrible. You must come home directly. You're to nurse it, Nellie, to feed it with sugar and milk, and take care of it day and night. I'll wish, hang on. I wish I were you, because it will be all yours when there is no Mrs. But is she very ill?" I asked, flinging down my rake and tying my bonnet. "I guess she is, yet she looks bravely," replied the girl, "and she talks as if she thought of living to see it grown to a man. She's out of her head for joy at such a beauty. If I were her, I'm certain I should not die. I should get better at the bare sight of it, in spite of Kenneth." I was fairly mad at him. Dame Archer brought the cherub down to master in the house, and his face just began to light up when the old croaker steps forward and says he, "Earnshaw, it's a blessing your wife has been spared to leave you this son. When she came, I felt convinced we shouldn't keep her long, and now I must tell you the winter will probably finish her. Don't take on and fret about it too much. It can't be helped. But besides, you should have known better than to choose such a rush of a lass." "And what did the master answer?" I inquired. "I think he swore, but I didn't mind him. I was straining to see the bairn," and she began away to describe it rapturously. I, as zealous as herself, hurriedly, eagerly home to admire on my part, though I was very sad for Henley's sake. He had room in his heart only for two idols, his wife and himself. He doted on both, and and adored one, and I couldn't conceive how he would bear the loss. When we got to Wuthering Heights, there he stood at the front door, and as I passed in, I asked, "How was the baby?" "Nearly ready to run about, Nell," he replied, pulling on a cheerful smile. "And the mistress?" I ventured to inquire. "The doctor says she's—" "Damn the doctor!" the utterer, the inter, he interrupted, reddening. "Frances is quite right. She'll be perfectly well by this time next week. Are you going upstairs? Will you tell her that I'll come if she'll promise not to talk? I left her because she would not hold her tongue, and she must. Tell her Mr. Kenneth says she must be quiet." I delivered this message to Mrs. Earnshaw. She seemed in flighty spirits, and replied merrily, "I hardly spoke a word, Ellen, and there he has gone out twice, crying. Well, I promise I won't speak, but that does not bind me not to laugh at him. Poor soul, till within a week of her death that gay heart never failed her, and her husband persisted doggedly, nay furiously, in affirming her health improved every day. When Kenneth warned that his medicines were useless at this stage of the malady, less at that stage of the malady, and he needn't put him to further expense by attending her, he retorted, "I know you need not. She's well. She does not want any more attendance from you. She never was in a consumption. It was a fever, and it is gone. Her pulse is as slow as mine now, and her cheek is cool." He told his wife the same story, and she seemed to believe him. But one night, while leaning on his shoulder in the act of saying she thought she should be able to get up tomorrow, a fit of coughing took her, a very slight one. He raised her in his arms. She put her two hands about his neck. Her face changed, and she was dead. As the girl had anticipated, the child Hareton fell wholly into my hands. Mr. Earnshaw, provided he saw him healthy and never heard him cry, was contented as far as regarded him. For himself, he grew desperate. His sorrow was of that kind that will not lament. He neither wept nor prayed. He cursed and execrated God, and man, and gave himself up to reckless dissipation. The servants could not bear his tyrannical and evil conduct long. Joseph and I were the only two that would stay. I had not the heart to leave my charge, and besides, I had been his foster sister, and excused his behavior more readily than a stranger would. Joseph remained to hector over tenants and laborers, and because it was his vocation to be where he had plenty of wickedness to reprove. The master's bad ways and bad companions formed a pretty example for Catherine and Heathcliff. His treatment of the latter was enough to make a fiend of a saint, and truly it appeared as if the lad were possessed of something diabolical at that period. He delighted to witness Henley degrading himself past redemption, and became daily more notable for savage sullenness and ferocity. I could not half tell what an infernal house we had. The curate dropped calling, and nobody decent came near us at last, unless Edgar Linton's visits to Miss Cathy might be an exception. At 15, she was the queen of the countryside. She had no peer, and she did turn out a haughty, headstrong creature. I own I did not like her after infancy was past, and I vexed her frequently by trying to bring down her arrogance. She never took an assertion to me. To me, though, she had a wondrous constancy to odd attachments. Even Heathcliff kept his hold on her affections unalterably, and young Linton, with all his superiority, found it difficult to make an equally deep impression. He was my late master. That is his portrait over the fireplace. It used to hang on one side and his wife's on the other, but hers has been removed, or else you might see something of what she was. Can you make that out? Mrs. Dean raised the candle, and I discerned a soft, freckled face. Wonder why I don't know. Let's see. Resembling the young lady. Soft-featured face. Looks like a young lady. It formed a sweet picture. The long, light hair curled slightly on the temples. The eyes are large and serious. The figure almost too graceful. I did not marvel how Catherine Earnshaw could forget her first friend, and for such an individual, I marveled how he, with a mind to correspond with this person, could fancy my idea of Catherine Henshaw. A very agreeable portrait, I observed to the housekeeper. Is it like? Yes, she answered, but he looked better when he was He looked better when he was animated. That is his everyday countenance. He wanted spirit in general. Catherine had kept up her acquaintance with the Lintons since her 5 weeks' residence among them, and as she had no temptation to show her rough side in their company, and had the sense to be ashamed of being rude where she experienced some invariable courtesy, she imposed unwittingly on the old lady and gentleman by her ingenious cordiality, gained the admiration of Isabella and the heart and soul of her brother, acquisitions that flattered her from the first, for she was full of ambition, and led her to adopt a double character without exactly intending to deceive any more. In the place where she heard Heathcliff termed a vulgar young ruffian, and worse. Guys, I'm getting sleepy again. I'm going to have to stop. I'm so sorry. It always happens. Oh, wish I could take a pill that would give me instant energy for all day long. Do this when I'm stitching too. Do a few stitches and then even on Zoom. Okay, I love you bunches, and we'll get back to that tomorrow. Maybe later today if I feel like I can. Okay. Hope to see you at 3 today. Tea at 3. Be sweet, don't be ugly. Bye-bye.